Ranjith Raja joins us now from Dubai. He's the head of the Refinitiv oil and shipping research for the Middle East and North African markets. Good to have you on the program with us again. Talk to us first about the logistics here of what exactly does it take to refloat a ship like this, particularly a ship of this size?
So for a vessel of this size specifically, means more than refloating, there is a lot of associated operations that goes around pulling the vessel into the center of the channel. Like we saw, the Egyptian Suez Canal authorities initially started with 3 tugs when the operation started, and that has gradually increased to almost 14, 15 tugs right now, and they are waiting for one more specialized tug to join earlier this morning. These are high-powered, specialized tugs which are catered specifically for these purposes, and that's where the help of the international community is kind of helping in terms of getting the right assistance in place and putting them in place. And in terms of floating, the vessel needs to, there was a report which reported that the vessels have started ballasting the tanks. So ballasting the tanks is basically filling up water in a certain compartment of the ship. Depending on where the vessel is touching ground, it's a usual tendency to kind of ballast on the opposite end so that to make the end where it is actually touching the ground lighter. So that will help in removing the ship out of the contact from the bank much more in an easier way. And combined with the assistance of the tugs, it should be relatively considerably easier to pull it out of the banks.
So once the ship is freed, what happens then? Will it be inspected for damage? And how would that take place?
Definitely, yes. So the first order of business would be to move the vessel to a safe anchorage spot, and in order to clear the transit for the other ships, for them to start the convoy and start moving as like business as usual for the other ones. But whereas for this vessel, there has to be an extensive inspection that needs to be carried out by the class authorities, which are basically the authorities who issue the safety of the vessel certificate, and an extensive underwater inspection will be carried out in order to assess any hull damage or hull rupture that could have potentially happened. So before the ship leaves the vicinity of the canal or the anchorage, they will have to get certified for being safe at sea all over again.
And then once the ship is out of the way, how long do you expect it to take to funnel this huge backlog traffic jam of ships that have been piling up to get through? Because we've heard everything from a few days to weeks, possibly even months. What is your expectation?
So we had gone back and checked the transit data for 2019 and 2020, and there have been instances where on a given day, the Suez Canal authorities have handled more than 100 ships or around 100 ships on one given day. So if they are able to put the logistics in place, which will basically be the pilotage requirements, each vessel needs to have at least 2 pilots on board, depending on the size. And each of them will also have to be assisted by 1 or 2 tugs, again, depending on the size. So considering they have all these logistics in place, and of course, a lot of ships will also need the assistance of the tide to pass the to pass the canal. Like, for example, today there is only 1 high tide during the whole day, but whereas most of the days there are 2 high tides. So depending on these timings and these logistics, the authorities have the capability to handle about 100 ships, which if properly put in place, they can clear the backlog in about 3 to 4 days.
And I know the priority right now, of course, is freeing the ship, but what kind of investigation could we see into how this happened? Because we've heard, it could have been a storm was taking place at the time, also the possibility of technical or human error. And could the shipping company potentially face charges or fines depending on the outcome of the investigation?
So there will definitely be an investigation that will be set in place, both for the interest of the ship owners in order to make sure that they are not taking on additional liability than what it should be, and also for the associated parties. Like there are going to be the Suez Canal authorities who are losing their daily revenue because of this condition, and the whole salvage operation that has been put in place with various parties coming and participating in it. The various shipping companies who have got their vessels delayed, and as a result, the demurrage cost that comes associated with it. So there is going to be an enormous number of claims that's going to be flowing through from one party to another. And the insurance companies and the reinsurance companies are the ones who are actually going to be kind of sitting in, and it is in their best interest to make sure an extensive root cause analysis or investigation is done so that the respective parties can be held liable or can be held accountable.
All right, we'll leave it there. Ranjith Raja in Dubai. Thank you.